headed back to Logan Ketterer. Among the top 4 keepers last season with 13 clean sheets.
There it is.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Seriously Loco, the Seriously Crazy fan podcast for El Paso Locomotive FC. I'm your host, Phil Bakke, and we took a little stab at Duke Keith, the legendary commentator for El Paso Locomotive there, with the little verbal slip. We'll try to keep those to a minimum tonight, but Duke, we love you. Just a little bit of comic relief here at the beginning. Tonight, I am joined by the whole Seriously Loco crew. I'm joined by Mikka Burrell. Mikka, welcome.
Hey, good to be here as always. I love Duke. I love that slip. I was saying right before we started recording, I have so much respect for people who do commentating because you cannot take back anything you say. Unlike if I were to say something embarrassing on here, I'm sure Phil would edit it out for me.
Well, we'll see. Depends.
All right.
We're also joined by Christian Canales. Christian, welcome back.
Hey, I'm kind of upset that you threw that intro in there because I wanted to come in angry about the result, but now I'm just smiling too much.
Well, we've got plenty of things to talk about to get worked up again, so you'll just have to build back up to that, I guess.
Sounds fair.
And we're also joined by Austin Young. Austin, what's going on, man?
How's it going? And Duke, we love you. Just like Phil said, just a little comic relief.
Yeah. Absolutely no shade at Duke. He's an absolute legend in El Paso, so no shade whatsoever. And we have a lot to talk about aside from like verbal slip-ups in the match. There were a lot of other slip-ups that I feel we need to talk about. There is the whole match against United. There is all of the things that go along with that, including some poor play early on, some goals, some questionable refereeing. So all in all, what a USL match it was. And then we've got to talk about the news surrounding Locomotive and potentially having some new neighbors, some new tenants moving in. Then we've got listener questions, and then we've got a preview of the upcoming United match. So loads to talk about today, and we'll try to get to it all in a quick manner, but let's just go ahead and dive right in. New Mexico United, the Derby del Camino Real, as it's been termed by just myself and Colin Deaver. The Rio Grande Derby, as it's known to the supporters groups. But either way, you slice it, whatever it's called. Austin, we'll start with you. I mean, the opening 10 minutes, we know that New Mexico is a pressing team. We know they play with a lot of energy. We know that we like to play out from the back, but you couldn't have asked for a worse 10 minutes from Locomotive in that opening sequence of the game.
Yeah, it was a terrible, start to the game. I think United saw what RGB did against us that hurt us and confused us a bit with the press. It seems like that's what they just did for the first 10, 15 minutes. And I don't know if just Mark wasn't prepared for that or the players weren't, but it was just horrible, horrendous. Any other word in the thesaurus next to horrible, insert here, it was just, it was bad.
Christian, I mean, do you chalk that up, like Austin was talking about, do you chalk that up to a preparedness thing, or do you chalk it up to kind of more like mentality or just individual errors? What would you attribute this kind of uncharacteristic start from Locomotive to?
It just looked like a lack of fitness to me. I mean, it was a short turnaround time, and granted, New Mexico had the same turnaround time we did, and they traveled a lot. But That's just what it looked like to me. They just weren't there, physically, by the hydration break, they just looked absolutely gassed. You know, and then even in that first 10 minutes, I don't know, they just weren't there mentally either is the thing. That's the most frustrating thing, I don't think any of us expect them to be able to run, at 100% right now, but at least get your head in the game. And that's what it felt like was missing. I'm sure we'll get into more specifics, but that's what I saw.
Yeah. I mean, Mikka, we like I kind of brought up, I guess, like we know New Mexico likes to run, likes to press. We spoke about it in the preview of this match. But they came out of the gate, and credit to them, they put us under loads of pressure early.
Yeah, I mean they put the ball in the net in the first 5 minutes. I mean, luckily, we had Chris Canales down there who was rightly called offside, but this was something that I kind of gathered last season as well, is that New Mexico United, I think they're always going to be superior athletes to us, because that's just the way that they're built. And so they use that to their advantage, especially in that first half. I think that, not that Locomotive don't have athletes. Of course we do. I mean, we have Omar Salgado, but I think in our squad building, we've kind of prioritized, technicians and system players, I think, a little bit more than just, straight up pace and power. And that's something that New Mexico has in abundance pretty much all over the pitch. In addition to some of the skilled players they have. So, I mean, it just showed, and it looked like that was going to be kind of their game plan, is let's get one early and then hold on maybe. But yeah, there was the thing that really just like confused me and bothered me the most was Mishak and Chiro. Like, that partnership usually is so solid, and it just was just off that night. Chiro kept finding himself like isolated on the byline, and on the side, and I just don't know why. I mean, they targeted him, and it led to some pretty dangerous situations, and that kept happening over and over. So yeah, it was a pretty shocking opening phase there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mishak was the big surprise to a lot of us in that, in terms of just kind of seeming Christian, you brought up the mentality, and I think Mishak kind of bore the brunt of that in terms of there were a few times where it seemed like he wasn't really aware of like New Mexico players around him. He didn't have kind of that sense of really what the situation was, either around the ball or around him, space wise. So like, did we gas him up a little bit too much against RGV? And is it potentially a weakness of his game where when he's not under pressure, as he was for the latter stages of the RGV game, where he can be that quarterback who's kind of spraying passes all over the field? Is that kind of the strength of his game, where maybe a weakness, he isn't that great at dealing with like that high press?
I don't know. I mean, I don't remember having this kind of problem last year. For the brief time that he was there, I don't remember ever having a bad word to say about him last season. So I don't think that it's a weakness. I just think that, everyone has terrible days, and this was his day. Oh, and Chiro's. It's just, we were unlucky to have both of our center backs have bad days at the same time.
Yeah, it was, Mishak in particular stands out just due to, when you're looking through the kind of the post-match ratings at the end of the game, anytime you see anything out of 10 below a 5, that's a struggle bus kind of day. And that was, Mishak came in at a 4.8 with an error leading to goal. And something that kind of stuck out to me in this particular match, and maybe we can go into this a little bit, was that Mishak actually did not have a clearance in the game. And I know we've spoken about clearances in the past as a stat and how our defenders don't register that many clearances because we pass out of the back. We don't really just boot it downfield. But I mean, to have 0 in a game where we were really under pressure a lot in the first half, that just seems like, is it a stubbornness to kind of depart from the game plan when it's needed? Or in this case, was it just strictly down to a bad day and our defenders were not really kind of dealing with the pressure around them? And that's open to anyone.
Yeah, I really hope that this is just a bad day because we're playing New Mexico United again, and I don't, and again and again, and so I don't see them changing too much of the way that they played because it worked. They could have won this game. I mean, I think either team really had a chance to put it away at different phases of the game, but. Yeah, to not even have one clear. I didn't even realize that he didn't have one clearance. But now that I think about it, he just wasn't. I want to say that it was the opening 10 minutes, but really he wasn't paying attention for a lot of instances of the game. I mean, there's an instance in like the 72nd minute, I think, where he's just straight up got his back to the play. And then he turns around and finds himself one-on-one with one of New Mexico United's attackers right in front of our box. And so, but like you said, Christian, I don't remember that being an issue last season. Now, granted, Mishak was out for most of that. But yeah, this is something that I hope that they go over in terms of, the film. I think it's something they really need to see for themselves to see how it looked and how that partnership just wasn't in sync on the night. But I'm hoping it's just a one-off and fitness, as they get more fit, that these things happen less. But yeah, just not great. Not great at all. Yeah.
Austin, I mean, we concede the goal and it's a sloppy back pass from Mishak. Logan can't really deal with it. Easy tap in, but it wasn't the only pressure that we had been under. It wasn't the only pressure that we were under the rest of the first half. And a lot of it for me, despite the defensive problems that we spoke about, a lot of it was starting in the midfield as well. And what did you see? Do you think it was tired legs that led to some of the sloppiness in midfield, or do you think it was something else?
I think sloppy leg was probably I wouldn't call it an excuse, but more likely what happened, like Christian was saying, they played just on Saturday, having turned around in 4 days. Not only that, but, they're coming off, what was it, like 3-4 months without any training. You hope that, the players are out there training on their own and stuff. But I think more than anything, that's what it probably was. It's just trying to get back into it. You hope these guys had taken the rust off in that first game against RGV, but it seems like they did it. And hopefully they finally officially got that rust off and can get their legs back under them. But yeah, I mean, that's probably the best way to put it with what happened with them that day.
The one thing that sticks out to me, and you guys can certainly jump into this, is that when a team is pressing you and you're a team that does like to pass the ball around, likes to play out from the back, however you want to describe that kind of possession-based system that we play, I think each player kind of has an inherent responsibility in a team like that to take care of the ball and to maintain possession, but really to not put the person that they're passing to under pressure. I think they have a responsibility to play smart passes. And I think that was for the opener. It was a series of players kind of shirking their responsibility to try to play something to advance the ball into a less dangerous area. And it's overall, like, obviously players make mistakes. It happens. There's bad situations that come up and sometimes you concede goals. But in this particular case, it felt like as the ball cycled back, each player was looking for the player behind them to bail them out of a bad situation. And finally, when Mishak asks Logan to bail him out, his pass isn't very good, and it obviously falls right to the feet of Chris Wehan, and it's an easy easy goal. But that to me stuck out just in terms of, and I think maybe that is like speaks to the legs and the tiredness of just each player has to and eventually take that responsibility to kind of take care of the ball. And on that move, they didn't, and they paid for it. I'm sure it was a discussion at halftime. And Locomotive benefited from New Mexico also tiring and not being able to press with that level of intensity for the whole 90 minutes. But another interesting thing that came up to me from watching the post-match press conference was we spoke about Omar Salgado, and we'll speak about him in a little bit. But one of the things that stood out to me was in Mark's press conference, and maybe Christian, you can speak about this. Mark, they asked about Omar's performance on the night, and one of the things that Mark said was before he scored, I don't think he was very good. And he talked about basically pre-goal and post-goal Omar. Do you think? I think we've spoken about Omar as a confidence player in the past, but do you think there is kind of a mentality shift that needs to happen where Omar doesn't necessarily come off the bench? He comes off the bench maybe with the fire instead of without needing that goal to kind of grow into the game.
I don't know. I can't remember if we ever saw him come off the bench and play last year, but yeah, that doesn't feel right, just because I think he does need time to just kind of feel things out. And like we said, he's probably in someone else's shithouse 11, but I think that he's the kind of player that does kind of thrive on a lot of the mind games and stuff. So without the time to develop that, I don't think we see him at 100%.
Should we just like have the Locomotive locker room, like Eighth Notch posted those messages on the walls of like in the tunnel of encouragement and all that. Should Eighth Notch just have like a fuck you Omar on the wall just to get him kind of riled up before he takes the field?
I mean, I think I had said it when we were all on our Zoom call watching the game together. It seems like he does play better angry, or riled up in some way. But I felt like a couple times that could go like against us because it looked like he was fixing to get sent off a couple of times. But yeah, no, I can't really disagree with Mark there. He did. I don't remember him doing anything before the goal, anything of note. So yeah, I can't disagree with that. But yeah, Salgado does seem to like to enjoy kind of the needle in the game and things like that. So
the first goal that Omar does get, I mean, the ball's drilled in by Brahim, kind of goes through a mass of bodies there in the center. It looks like Rebellon actually I think he is shooting from how he really drills that ball in towards the center. I think he's actually trying to take it on goal. I think it takes a deflection off a New Mexico player on the way through. But it finds Omar at the back post. And I mean, not a simpler goal for Omar. He's going to have a tough time finding an easier one to score the rest of his time with Locomotive. But kind of in a strange way, Locomotive, despite not being at their best, actually playing some of the worst football we've seen. They're 1-1, just before halftime. Also, I mean, it was obviously a big goal at the time, but how big was it that Omar specifically scored it as well?
I mean, if we really pay attention, like Mark was saying that, he kind of really changed after he scored that goal. So I think it's pretty important. I mean, at the time, granted we're down, one goal and we need that back. But if that's what Omar needed to kind of drive his confidence back up, to have him play a lot better, then I think the importance of it is just like trying to think of the right word. It's unprecedented, it's who knows how Omar would have played if he wouldn't have gotten that goal, and the game could have gone a completely different way. So I'd say pretty important and definitely turn the tide for the team,
Another part of this goal is Omar's positioning and being in that place and kind of gambling on that ball reaching him. I mean, that's kind of a quality too that we hadn't really seen from Omar last season. I'll open this up to the group. Just to me, obviously Omar played wide a lot, but for him to gamble and kind of take up that position at the back post, that's more of a traditional kind of number 9 poacher kind of thing that we hadn't really seen from Omar up to this point.
Yeah, I'm always pleased for Omar when he's able to contribute to the team in a way that shows up on the stat sheet, because he was billed as kind of the hometown boy, the star player. He's wears the number 9 shirt, even though we've come to discover that maybe that's not the kind of player that he is. And he said as much, but yeah, I mean, he taps in at the near post, and it's exactly what you said. That's a pretty classic poacher's goal. And one thing too about Omar that I think has become more evident is in his game is I think he plays a lot on instinct, and so maybe that helps him if he's in the penalty area and to just instinctively bungle it over the line. A goal is a goal. It doesn't always have to look pretty and like we've always asked for. Just try to be in those areas, try to shoot. So yeah, I'm really happy for him. I know that there was some questions from opposing fans about his positioning there, but I think ultimately we kind of have decided that this is onside, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think just to quell that, I guess the offside question, when Rebellon plays the ball in, he's certainly on, as is the rest of the Locomotive players. When the ball goes through the crowd, Dylan Mahrez actually does, I think, make an attempt to play the ball. But he was onside in the buildup, so that doesn't really matter unless he touches it. And I guess the unanswerable question without the microscopic VAR is like, did Mahrez touch it? Because if he did, then Omar would have been off. But I don't think he does, having watched it from a couple angles. So I think he's on, and ultimately the referee made that decision, I guess. And the linesman did not flag. So, good for Locomotive to get a borderline decision. Cause I mean, Christian, we've been through enough, borderline offside calls going against Locomotive.
Yeah. Yeah, it was unfortunate that it wasn't a Nick Ross goal, because usually those are the ones that take his off the board.
Or Nick.
I think when we were speaking at this time, when we were doing our like while we were watching the game together, the kind of overarching feeling after the equalizer from Locomotive was get to halftime, like. Get into halftime, consolidate, and, with this 1-1 score line, just kind of find a new way to attack this game. Locomotive go and grab a second goal before halftime with the more added time here. Andrew Fox in the box, as he's been dubbed. We talk about set pieces a lot. This is kind of from a second phase of a set piece. After the ball had been cleared initially, Rebellon puts it back in, and then it's kind of a unfamiliar type of goal almost for Locomotive. It seems like we don't score many. We forced Mizell into a save, and then Fox puts home from close range. But is it another case of players just kind of acting on instinct and taking risks and trying to, make things count I guess, maybe taking more risks or more calculated risks than they did last season?
Well, I mean, when you have your left back in the box, then I would argue yes. There's probably some risk taking going on there. I want to say that I thought Andrew Fox was one of the better players on the night. Really impressed with his performance again. He seems like one of the few that's kind of really match fit and sharp mentally. At least it looks so out there. But yeah, I mean, this is one of those opportunistic goals that we, like you said, that we don't always get. I feel like our goals are much more methodical and they're scored because the system succeeds in that moment. But this is just, you're there, right place, right time. But the corner kick, I think this is where you could really see that Salgado was energized by his goal, because he almost gets on the end of, I think it was like a ball over the top that he almost got to, and that whole sequence kind of led up to Fox being able to score.
Yeah, I think Sam Hamilton barely gets ahead to the ball over the top for Omar.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that was nice. And also, does this count? I think someone asked when we were watching it, does this count as like a set piece goal? I feel like it kinda, right? I mean, if it is, then that's nice, because it looks like we're working on that part of our game more just in general.
Yeah, I think we kind of landed on, because it's not fully cleared. It's kind of the same phase of play, but I know it's not what Christian's looking for, which is he's looking for someone to rise. And
I'm looking for Omar to, I'm waiting for Omar to hit that in with his head. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and we keep waiting for the headed goals, because there were some opportunities for a headed goal in towards the end of this one, but we'll get there, I guess. So we make it into halftime with kind of an improbable lead. And one thing we spoke about, I think, a lot last year was just the mentality and how sometimes it felt like games were just kind of over if we conceded first. This, at the very least, the team showed lots of positive mentality to be able to fight back and not only equalize, but get the lead after a rough start. I mean, Austin, do you think that's a shift from last year and maybe something that they've talked about being maybe a little more resilient after going behind?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of saw it towards the end of last year too, where the team kind of shifted to anytime we'd be behind. Kind of last year in the beginning, we kind of would just accept it or just at least try to come back for the tie. But you've kind of seen a shift in the team that I'd say maybe right before that playoff run, around September is when the team really started making that shift. I'm sure Mark made some tactical changes to kind of change it up, but it's definitely a different mentality that everybody on the squad has really, really had recently. And it's a great thing to see,
Yeah, I just think it is a shift from the beginning of last year, and it's a good shout because we obviously saw a comeback in Fresno in the playoffs as well. So I think it's good to see something like that hanging around. And Mikka, you specifically talked about Andrew Fox's performance as well. He was interviewed in the post-match also specifically, probably down to him being a goal scorer, but he brought up in the post-match interview that the system, he specifically said how the system allows him to play and be involved in the attack. It seemed in this one, even in the first half, but especially in the second, as Locomotive gained a little bit better grip on the game, it seemed like the fullbacks were really getting involved in the second 45.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what you want to see. That's what we were having issues with at our last time out against RGB, is getting out and getting wide. I I'm glad that we're able to have a structure that allows the fullbacks into those areas, because Brian Rebillon and Andrew Fox are in my opinion, some of the more talented players on the squad and in the league in that position. I think Andrew Fox arguably one of my man of the match for sure, just because he was so influential everywhere, and of course scoring a goal doesn't hurt. But now it's about sustaining that, right? And giving us a season of that. I understand that this is by far the weirdest season in sports history, probably. But and I'm sensitive to that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can kind of sustain this and just improve their mentality going forward. Because there were times last season where it felt like, well, we conceded, like heads drop, and I think it gets easier to come back when you've done it before, because then that you can. And so it was nice to see 2 kind of quick fire goals and be able to go into halftime with that, because I'm sure that changed the team talk a lot as well. So good stuff.
The second half begins, and Locomotive actually have a pretty good spell at the beginning, which it seems is becoming a little bit of a trend, I guess, if you can call it that, over 2 games. But a trend of the team coming out of the halftime break and actually kind of taking control of the match. However, the kind of crazy thing is that for the bulk of the second half, Locomotive don't actually create a shot, which is kind of crazy because it seemed like we were very much in the ascendancy. But we've seen this problem in the past where Locomotive play really well, but maybe don't generate the kind of offense that we would actually like. Christian, do you have any ideas as to like how we can sustain that offensive output over like a whole half? Because in this one, we had 1 shot in the first 35 minutes. First 35 minutes of the half. We had 1 shot in the 56th minute, and we didn't have another shot until the 80th. So what is it going to take, I guess, for us to really kind of put a consistent half together, or even a consistent game together? I guess, are there any thoughts about what might be limiting our output?
I think that right now, I think in the last game, it was maybe a matter of, in my opinion, maybe Mark not utilizing his subs like he should have. He ended up only using 3, first of all. I think 2 of them were for defenders. Oh no, he took Zola off right at coming out of halftime. Yeah. And then he took Cheer off in the 68th. But I think Dylan was maybe a little bit tired. I think he's still, as far as like match ratings go, I think he was still the highest rated player on our team. But I think that he was tired. He played all 90 minutes the first game too, I believe. Yeah. So 2 straight games of a full 90. And I think that maybe might have been a game changer. Gomez wasn't having a great game, pretty unnotable. He came out, but not until almost right at the end. So I think that is going to be the key, especially in this season, is figuring out how to rotate the attackers. Because I think that especially our attackers, they run a lot. Omar runs a lot. Gomez runs a ton. He does a great job of defending. So I think that being able, and Dylan too. So I think that being able to manage their minutes particularly well is going to be the key to having that sustained attack throughout the match.
That's a really good point, I think. And yeah, Dylan having played 180 now, it does make me a little wary because he is very central, both in positioning, but central in importance to our attack. I think again, he creates, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 assists, 5 of our goal scoring opportunities. and has 3 shots of his own. So 8 goal scoring opportunities created just by one player. By far the most of anyone in the team this game. And then it was the same. He was second only to Marius Lomas in terms of shots last game. So that's one that kind of frightens me a little bit because he could potentially get burnt out. And now you're talking about a guy who is so creative and kind of like he takes all our set pieces. He's like, he's very much central to what we do, but he can't play every single minute of the season. There's no way, unless he's just completely superhuman. And we don't know Mark knows something we don't, which I guess could be, maybe he's an Iron Man. I don't know. But do you guys get concerned at all about Mahrez burnout or any of these players kind of playing, a lot of minutes?
I'm hoping that as the season goes on, Mark will be a little more flexible. I'm guessing that maybe right now I don't think he could take someone out because I don't think anyone else would fit in the shape that we were playing. And maybe there just haven't been enough training time, to make a whole tactical switch, to the whole squad on the fly. So maybe he didn't have an option, but hopefully, as the year goes on that they're a little more mentally prepared to, change the shape of the team and change the, how they attack. If he takes, Mahrez out there and puts in Lomas and then has to move Lomas up top and put Gomez somewhere, I think that might progress. Our options might increase as the year goes on. And we have 2 players that aren't on the bench right now that will probably be in the coming weeks.
Right. No, that's a good point.
I just think it's funny that this is one of those rare times that Mark actually used 3 subs, but now he's got 5. I don't know. I want to ask him about this one day because, boy, I don't know. I don't know what he's saving him for. I mean, it's I don't know. Do we know if we're going to use the 5 subs next season in line with kind of like the other leagues? Because if we are, I mean, I think that we need to be sensitive to that and use them. I mean, it's, this is already a kind of a small squad. So
I'd imagine that USL would follow the guidelines as little as they do in real life or in normal play, I guess.
Right.
But let's see. So a shout out that I wanted to give, and I think we spoke about it while we were watching the game, but a player who we kind of ragged on a little bit, in the last episode, but came on at halftime for Zola and was really good was Yuma. Between Mikka and Austin, do you guys want to talk about Yuma's influence after the half?
Yeah, Yuma was really good. I mean, he just did what any, I guess, good 8 does when they come on, is just keep the ball moving forward. He was so quick with his passes. I don't really recall him ever making any mistakes. And so, yeah, he was just good for keeping the shape and keeping the ball moving forward. Maybe that's his role going forward? Question mark. I don't know. Question, comma, mark. But no, yeah, he had a really good game. I was really happy to see how he played.
And he avoided a card too.
He's so funny because he was so business-like in this game. And I'm like, this is a derby. This is when I expect you to shit house for 90 minutes or however many minutes you were on.
He got a red last year in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess without Santi Moar, it's not the same. He needs another Spaniard to get into it with.
Maybe that's what it was. He felt a little lonely out there without a fellow Spaniard. He was just I guess I'll do my job.
No one could actually just get him riled up, I guess. He needs that fire lit under him. Although he needed no prompting in the RGV game to wipe somebody out in the first 5 seconds. So, but speaking of wiping people out, Lokomotiv maintaining a 2-1 lead, couple of chances at both ends, I would say. But New Mexico United actually have probably the better of the chances because Devin Sandoval is standing in front of the Lokomotiv net. Ketterer has already made a fantastic save, but it's fallen right to his feet about 3 yards out, and he contrived to miss. I mean, in terms of worst misses, can you guys think of kind of a bigger sitter or a time that you've been more relieved and more surprised to see someone not hit the back of the net?
Well, I brought up when we were watching it last year in one of the final. I don't remember. There was a Fresno game in the playoffs. We were playing over there.
Oh yeah.
Kurimoto had a ball fall right to him, and same thing, right in front of the net. 3 or 4 yards out, and he just shanks it. So I don't know. I didn't realize we were already coming up to this point in the game. I was going to make a remark about how. We can't discount the 2 goals that we got in the first half because, we saw firsthand how someone can miss from that distance. So,
yeah,
it's not nothing.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we talked about Omar's being easy, but given how hard Sandoval made it look from that close, I guess it wasn't as easy as we thought. I always think of, this is an old reference, and I don't know if Mikka will be the only one maybe who remembers this, but there is 2005 Champions League semifinal between Liverpool and Chelsea. Liverpool lead by Luis Garcia's ghost goal, which may or may not have crossed the line, but it was the semifinal that led to them going to Istanbul. Bottom line, it's deep in added time at the end of the game. It is Chelsea's throwing everything forward, and if they score, they're at Anfield. If they score, they go to the final, on away goals. And Eidur Gudjohnsen, the Icelandic striker for Chelsea, chests the ball down from 6 yards out. He's staring at the goal like he's got the whole goal to shoot at, and he's somehow shanked fully wide off target. And I thought immediately of that because Devin Sandoval. So I literally could hear Clive Tildesley screaming, it falls for Gudjohnsen. Oh, he's missed it. That's it falls for Sandoval. So that was my takeaway. But unfortunately for Lokomotiv, a few minutes later, and this is, maybe the rant section of the podcast, I guess. I don't know if Christian's got the Stephen A energy on deck. But New Mexico United awarded a penalty. It looked like Richie Ryan was fouled in the buildup to the penalty. Guys, just what are we thinking? What are we feeling in the aftermath of this penalty award for New Mexico United?
Trash.
Yeah, it shouldn't have happened.
Trash.
Becky definitely fouled him. I'm not upset about that part. But the ball shouldn't have been in play at that point in the game because Richie just gets dug into. And I don't know if it's a matter of, it being Richie and, he's kind of one of the tougher guys on the team, so he doesn't get that foul. If that happens to a striker, I'm sure that gets called 110% of the time. But it's utter nonsense. It's a debacle.
This is a goal that gets called back if there's VAR.
Yeah.
Period. It's just Chris Ruska. I understand it's a tough job, but I really feel like he made a lot of this game about himself. It was shades of I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mateo Lajos, who referees in La Liga. Well, Phil, maybe you'll know about it. I think in the 2018 Champions League semifinal, I think he refereed Liverpool and City's tie.
Yeah.
And Pep had a huge rant and called him a special person.
Yeah.
And so and he said he's a special person. He always, what everyone else sees, he will call the opposite.
Yeah.
And so I've decided that Chris Ruska is my special person. And I think that's what happened here. I mean, it's such a clear foul. And Richie Ryan, if we're talking about reputations, he's not a player that just goes down in that area, and for that reason, I mean, it's just ridiculous. If there's VAR, it gets called back. Period.
Yeah, I mean, VAR is installed in USL and it's gone. But I mean, I don't know. Like, I had flashbacks. 2014 World Cup. Mexico, Netherlands. Just like even the way Richie fell, I was like, I had these horrible flashbacks that should have not been a penalty. It's ridiculous. I don't know what the pro refs were thinking or what they were doing.
Yeah. The thing for me is that Mikka, I mean, I think you brought it, you put it in a good light, but I think a lot of this game, especially down to like, going back to the first half, Omar Salgado's fouled outside the box. I don't think there's any, like, the viewers at home, every single player wearing blue on the night, like, knew that it was a foul. Every player in black and gold pretended that it wasn't, but everybody knew that it was a foul, and he waves it off. Omar calls him a fucking joke, loudly enough for everyone to hear. And immediately there's this kind of indignance from Chris Ruska. And let's be real. I don't know, if you guys have been around like a game and been able to hear what's regularly shouted at a referee during even the most kind of casual of, like, we're talking not even professional games, but amateur levels, and like, there is a lot of abuse hurled at referees. And like, I'm not saying it's the greatest thing to yell offensive stuff at the referee, but I mean, fucking joke is not that bad. Let's be real. Like, like that is not that bad of a thing to be told. I mean, obviously in my current workplace, it wouldn't be great, but when I was in the Army, I was called a lot worse. And there was no recourse to like kick someone out for that. So I think from that point, it became like, he went full Michael Jordan and was like, it became personal for me.
He was like, you all are hoes.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think you can tell at the end of the game when Richie gets in Ruska's face that when he blows the full-time whistle, the camera goes straight into Ruska, just getting battered by Richie Ryan. And that was a whole other decision. I won't get into the kind of specifics, but he's got this look on his face like he's, I don't know, trying to be tough and trying to like, I don't know if it was like stick up for himself, like, oh, I'm not going to take this or whatever. Like, I'm not going to take this abuse type thing. But at the end of the day, like, if you make it about that kind of, I guess, like machismo, for lack of a better term, like if you make it about your reputation and stuff, like, then it's not actually, you're not refereeing, you're kind of like inflating your own ego, I guess, in a way. But yeah, in that one, in that decision, he's just wrong. He's just incorrect. There's a foul on Richie, and it was genuinely shocking when it wasn't whistled back, because I think it was, I mean, just plain as day that it's a foul, and it's unfortunate because it obviously ends up affecting the result. Locomotive had, weathered the storm up until that point, and in the end, United equalized with the penalty from the spot. Sandoval making no mistake that time, although Logan does nearly get to it. I think he'll still save his share of penalties this season. Hopefully not in too many instances, but he guesses right, just doesn't quite get there. And I think it's worth mentioning, actually, bringing Logan up. Logan has a good game, in my estimation, despite the fact that we concede 2 goals. I think Logan was actually a bright spot defensively, and it would have been a lot worse without him back there. How did you guys feel about his performance on the night?
I thought he did fantastic. He looked like he was in mid-season form. Like, just all the saves he had to do. Granted, a couple bad back passes, but I mean, I think I even called it when we were on our Zoom watching the game on that penalty. If he wouldn't have, it looked like he stopped for half a second before he made that decision. If he would have just straight up gone for it, he would have stopped it. But overall, yeah, he had a fantastic game, and it's kind of hard with in any derby to kind of keep it at 0 just because of what happened. So, I mean, I think any other game, any other team, he probably would have had a clean sheet.
I think we have the most clean sheets in the league right now. I mean, granted, it hasn't been that many games, but we've got 2.
2 out of 3 is a good start for sure.
Yeah. I think that Logan could, and I hope no one who could make this happen is listening to this, but I think that he could absolutely start for an MLS side. I mean, he's a very, very talented goalkeeper. Obviously, I hope he stays here and becomes a legend. But yeah, no, he had a good night, and really, in my notes, I barely talk about him, and I think that's a good thing when it's your keeper. So,
oh, yeah, I mean, he made the saves that he could. For right before, like you said, right before that Sandoval shot that he misses, that comes off a really good save that he wasn't able to haul in, but that could have easily gone past him. And yeah, I mean, I think we'll talk about it later, but I'm just going to say it right now too, that he's my, the game changer this game. Cause, that first maybe 10, 20 minutes, New Mexico could have maybe had 3. And it's because of Logan that they didn't.
The end of the game, as I mentioned earlier, from the 80th minute on, New Mexico have a player go off injured. And I didn't notice this when we were watching it the first time, but I don't think he actually comes back on. I think they're playing the game with 10 men, actually, because they had made all of their subs. So in that final kind of phase of the game, they were actually down a man, I believe, but Locomotive absolutely poured it on at the end, trying to win this game. Dylan Mares, Nick Ross, and Omar Salgado all have gilt edge chances to win this game. It doesn't fall for us, but can we take a little bit of heart from the fact that we were getting in those positions in the first place?
I think a little bit, because and when I say that, I'm talking about just in terms of improvement or change, where even last year, when things were going well, I think that we would get chances, but we weren't finishing, and that's a little bit of what that reminded me of. I think these were better chances, which I guess is good, but the other edge of that is that since they are better chances, they should be going in, unlike the ones last year where they were kind of 50-50. So yeah, I think it could go either way.
yeah, I will say that I had a peek at some of the league-wide stats. We are currently 4th most for shots, which I would never have. I don't think we would have seen us up there last season. So, I mean, and something you mentioned earlier, Phil, that I actually thought was really surprising was how long we went without a shot in the second half, because it didn't feel like that. It didn't feel tedious.
Right.
It didn't feel tedious in possession like we might have, this time last year. So I think that we're making progress in that regard and just trying to get things on net and just keep creating. I didn't realize that they were down a man, though. I guess there was more space now that I think about it. But yeah, we've got, the fourth most shots in the league. I think we're trying to be more intentional on the ball, more intentional with our possession. And yeah, I mean, this is a weird occasion. We're playing our rival. There's no fans there. The ref is trying to make it all about himself. It's just, there was just a lot going on. So I was encouraged to see that we were still trying to fight to the end and nick it, but not to be.
So as we go into the end, it does end in a 2-2 draw, the second year in a row that this particular fixture ends by that scoreline. There will be more editions, obviously, of United at the Swap as we get into that. But with the 2-2 draw, we go to our score prediction update of the day, and Christian Canales has the live table of Seriously Loco score predictions. I'm going to need a little stinger on my soundboard here for the score prediction update.
Yeah, so you and I did not have a good day, Phil.
Yeah, it was a rough one.
I
was so close.
Yeah.
If the penalty goes for me, I would have been a lot better off.
Yeah. So you predicted a 2-1 win with a Zola goal, neither of which were correct, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Mikka had a good day. She picked a 2-2 draw, so she got the result and the score right. She had Gomez scoring, though, which unfortunately did not happen, but she comes away with 3 points. Austin,
Yes.
2 big weeks in a row. He had a 2-2 draw as well, but predicted Lomas scoring. Lomas didn't see the field until the last 3 minutes of the game. But Austin also comes away with 3 points. I picked a 1-1 draw with Mahrez scoring, so I get a point for the result, but no points for the correct score or the goal score. So where that leaves us is Austin remains in first place. His lead grows with 7 total. Mika's in second now. She went from last to second. So she's at 4. I'm sitting in third with 3 points and Phil at 2. But like we said, this game is designed so that anyone can jump at any time. If Phil gets everything right this weekend, Austin doesn't, he'll only be 1 point out of first place. So anything can happen.
Yeah. Well, I'm
in first for at least one more week, regardless.
Yeah. Oh, Mikka can jump you if
that's
right.
Yeah, that's true.
Not like physically jump you, but like table.
So I don't have my fancy intro that I made before, but I do have some ominous cyberpunky music for the introduction of this week's introduction to the Shithouse 11. This is like villainous somewhat, right?
Yeah.
I like it.
I'll work on it a little bit, but we'll see. We've got the Shithouse 11. Gosh, felt like there was a lot of options this time around. Austin, we'll throw this one out to you first, but who are you picking to go into our Shithouse 11, the best, the list of players and other personnel, I guess, that we absolutely love to hate around Seriously Loco?
Okay. Is it possible to introduce refs into this team?
I think we did last year too.
Yeah, I think we did, but unfortunately, I don't think we had their name last year. So now we have Chris Ruska's name like tattooed on our eyelids. So
then definitely, I'm definitely gonna go with him. Just terrible. The biggest thing that bugged me about the whole match was the injury. And what was it, like the 88th minute, right?
Yeah,
he goes down right on the sideline.
It was earlier.
Yeah, and he doesn't even tell him to get off the field. And it's right there. He just needs to move like 5 feet. and is off, and it takes so much time off. But yeah, that's gonna be my introduction.
He is
to this week's
given,
Shithouse
just
Anonymous.
fun fact, sorry to interrupt you, he is given 14 cards in 2 games
Oh my God.
this season. So make of that what you will.
And all of them are to Locomotive.
Yeah,
I mean, we had 4. That's a ton. We had 4 this game.
Yeah.
it's just crazy.
Dang.
Crazy.
So, Christian, you got anyone top of mind for you in this team?
I mean, I would I'm going to give 2 options, and if it needs to be a tiebreaker, we can use that. But I'm okay with the ref, but also the fucker who was on the sideline for 2 minutes. I don't remember who it was. I don't remember if it was Guzman. I don't think so.
Gosh, I'd have to look at the team real quick.
Hamilton's the only one that got taken off after the goal was scored, after the equalizer. So maybe it was him.
It may have been Hamilton. I'll try to find it.
In which case, yeah, fuck that guy. That's my choice.
Yeesh.
Yeah,
we need our intern to get on this.
Yeah, for real. Because I know Najem came off, but that was early.
Look at the first half.
Sam Hamilton played, but then someone else came off like early for them. Oh, Bruce came on for Najem. That was the early change. Yeah, I think it may have been Sam Hamilton late who came off injured, I think.
Like I say, he's the only one that leaves after they equalize, so that's my guess.
Yeah. I don't know, Mikka, do you have any other views of this?
No, yeah, I could totally understand the ref and Hamilton, if indeed it was him who was just sitting on the pitch. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I kind of hinted to it, but in an effort to, be fair, I think the shithouse on the night for me was Omar Salgado for his celebration after the goal. Looking back at the replay, it doesn't look like he's gesturing to Mizell, but while I was watching it, that's what I saw. It looked like he was sticking his tongue out at him. And for calling the ref a fucking joke, he's both a shithouse and a hero. So I'm gonna put him in mine. I want him leading the line for my shithouse.
Really quick, I actually just did go back. It was Hamilton.
Okay. So I think we need to come to a consensus on this. I don't have any new nominations outside of what you guys have already said. But who do we feel comfortable adding to this team? Has anyone
Let's
been
make it fun and
swayed?
let's make it fun and put Omar in. I think that makes things interesting.
Let's put Omar in because we know that he is in other people's shithouse 11.
Well, there you have it. Omar Salgado, the first Locomotive induction to the Shithouse 11. In case any of you thought that we weren't fair, weren't balanced, weren't trying to be impartial, we certainly are. And Omar has got a mixed honor, I guess, of being in the Shithouse 11. The one note that I do want to add on as we kind of close out this segment before we move on to our game changers is that I saw the news that Chris Turpak is actually sitting out the USL return to play season this year with Austin Bold. It does look like he's out of contract as well at the end of this year, so they are going to release him. And he'll be available on a free, but he's sitting out this season due to his wife has a child on the way, and totally respect his decision to sit out. Retweeted that from the Seriously Loco account saying that he led the line of our Shithouse 11 last season, and good luck, best of luck to him and wherever he ends up. And he. I don't know if he read it, but he did like it. So I thought that was validation of people understanding that the Shithouse 11, for the most part, is for fun and not a genuine hatred. I would say there's a couple of players last year who may have gotten on our actual shit lists in terms of disliking them as players. Turpak, just kind of a tough opponent. And so I appreciated his good sportedness of liking that particular tweet. But guys, now we'll talk about the game changers for Locomotive. Christian, I mean, I'll let you start this one off because you mentioned yours already, but why is Logan your game changer for this one?
Yeah, I mean, he keeps us in it. We get a couple of good goals that, like I said before, obviously can't be taken for granted, but they're also kind of, we were just lucky that those players were there at that time. I don't think they were like well created goals or anything like that. So I really think that it is Logan that kept this game competitive.
For Austin, who made the difference for you in this one?
For me, I'm gonna have to go with Yuma. I mean, the way he held the middle there, I mean, we were talking about it when we were watching it. We haven't seen him play like that before. Nothing was getting by him. He was, making those passes, making the right decisions. And I think without him there was a lot of plays that were being set up near the end there for chances that I think if he's not there making those plays, they don't happen.
And Mikka, for you, who made the difference for you in this one?
Yeah, I got to give this one to Andrew Fox. Of course, he scores the second goal, the go-ahead goal, which unfortunately we don't stay ahead. But I still think that he had an all-around really, really good game. I mean, he won all his tackles. Nearly half of his passes were in the opposition's half. I had a couple key passes, 87% pass success. And yeah, I think he just had a really, really good game, really strong game, both going forward and defensively. I mean, there were times that he found himself kind of up the field and Chiro was stranded a little bit, but I think that ultimately that it pays off with him going forward because he can whip those crosses in, he can score apparently. So, I think the Fox in the box for me, it was a really great game for him. The interesting one for me, I think it's tough because Omar is so good in this game, especially after he scores, as we mentioned. But the one for me, the game changer again, and obviously it's a little less flashy because he doesn't score. But for me, it's Dylan Mahrez again. He's so good on the ball, and all of the things that we kind of talked about preseason about being about Alexi, and not to take away from Alexi Bassetti as a player. But I think we worried about who's that technician going to be, who's going to take our set pieces, who's going to like have the feet in the middle of the park to be able to go around people, get past people, play those balls in behind and all of that. And I think we've seen across the first couple of games that he is 100% that type of player. Obviously not the pedigree, I guess, that goes along with a player like Alexi, in terms of coming from Europe, but certainly technically just as gifted, in a lot of ways. And one of the bright spots for me, and I think something that we'll see come to fruition sooner than later, is his ability from set pieces. And I'm really excited about that. Not just delivering crosses in from corners and stuff, but being able to strike a dead ball on goal as well. In the first match, he hits the post against RGV from just outside the box, and then in this one, he just like fizzes one wide from a good distance out as well. It just curls wide of Meisel's post. So. Mahrez for me is just a guy who is going to continue to, I think, be kind of that creative force for us. And if he can continue to deliver on this level, I think he's going to have a lot of goals and assists to his name in this shortened season. But this draw
leaves the Group C standings as follows. El Paso still top of the group for now, 5 points with a win and 2 draws. And then Switchbacks and New Mexico United sit both on 4 points. I mean, Switchbacks and Real Monarchs, Monarchs still winless and with just a single point, bottom of the table. That Switchbacks Monarchs games, just briefly, I mean, it from 3-1 down to 3-3 there at the end, a couple of stoppage time goals from Switchbacks and down a man. They scored those 2 goals. So, I mean, our Switchbacks, we kind of spoke about in the preview, our Switchbacks kind of more of a concern. Maybe not the most, mind-blowingly talented team, but certainly they've got quite a mentality on that team.
Oh, man. Yeah. Go ahead, Ozzy.
No, I was going to say I think it's still unknown because in reality, we don't know what the Monarchs are. I mean, we've kind of seen them play. We kind of know where Switchbacks were last season, but I think it's still an unknown until we actually face them. Where I don't mean this in a bad way possible at all. Until they face a quality squad again, because we just don't know where a team like Monarchs is with probably half their squad from last year out at the bubble right now. So yeah, that's just my mentality with it.
That would I think they must have thought they had that game won at 3-1 up a man. Like, it just, to throw it away like that just seems, is it just there's been so much turnover at Monarchs, or are we looking at kind of a different prospect of Switchbacks? I'm not sure what the answer to that is.
Well, I mean, they lost Kalen Ryden, so I thought that was probably a big loss for them because he was one of the, older, more senior players in that Real Monarchs squad last season. So maybe that's got something to do with it. I don't know who is in their back line now, to be fair. But it's so hard I never know what to make of these fixtures between the MLS 2 sides sides that are, linked with an MLS squad. Because there's just so many moving parts, especially like Austin mentioned, with the MLS bubble going on. But yeah, to throw away a lead like that is never a good look. Hopefully you do the same with us if we're ever down to them this season.
You love to see it after they knocked us out unceremoniously. Right. So that is the standings in Group C as it goes. For now, top of the group and unbeaten. So not all bad news, despite the fact that it was a somewhat disappointing result on Wednesday. The news got weirder, though, as the week went on, and New Mexico's restrictions surrounding COVID have led to reports from a couple of different sources around Mountain Star Sports Group of the possibility being discussed of New Mexico United basing themselves out of El Paso and remaining training and playing all of their home games at Southwest University Park and Locomotive facilities. So, guys, I mean, what do you think about these potential new neighbors that our squad might have, and the potential implications, I guess, of a team playing completely on the road in a lot of ways? Well, in every way. I don't know why I said that, but a USL team playing completely, training, living completely away from home. What do you think about this potential new tenant for Mountain Star?
I think they're just dying to be Texan, is what I think. And they're just jumping at whatever chance they can get.
Oh my God. I love that.
Never thought of that.
Well, I mean, we've gotten some stick this week for El Pasoans apparently wanting to be from New Mexico. So
yeah,
could the opposite be true?
Said no one ever.
Yeah.
No, where does this come from? At me. At Seriously Loco. No, I'm serious. Like, people who are listening to this that are not fans of El Paso Locomotive, the 5 of you out there that maybe listen to us that are not fans of El Paso Locomotive, let me know where this comes from, why you think El Pasoans want to be New Mexican. I've never in my almost 15 years of living in El Paso perceived that. That is just bizarre. I mean, we are Texas through and through. We are unique for sure, but we're Texan. I mean, period. No, but getting back on topic, rent is due on the 1st. It's bizarre, but and I know I've seen some of the fans don't like this idea. I mean, especially for those of us here that we all watch English football, it's bizarre. I mean, your home ground in English football is very much like a part of the club's identity. But then you look at, like Serie A, for example, and sharing stadiums is just, it's normal. It's practical. I mean, as far as infrastructure goes. So in our context, I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, the rules right now as they stand in New Mexico, from the governor's office are both for air travel and ground travel. If you enter New Mexico from another state, you are supposed to quarantine for 14 days. And they are, expecting businesses to report those who are not doing that. How they can expect that to happen or to enforce that, I don't know. I work in New Mexico, and I haven't been in New Mexico for 4 months now because of this rule. So I know it's a thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's really strange. I mean, maybe I don't know, maybe it can be a kind of a good thing because then we'll just have the home advantage all the time. But, and maybe we can spy on their training sessions. I don't know. But, yeah, we'll see where that goes. That's bizarre. I know some people don't like it, and I can understand why, but, it's an extraordinary circumstance, and sometimes you just have to, maybe put rivalries aside for a little bit and try to, be a good neighbor.
And on the flip side, we can be a good neighbor now, but when things get back to normal, we can just throw that in their face. It's perfect. Yeah. It's perfect ammo.
Like, how you
remember that time where you
united and not even in your state?
Like, remember that time where you had to crash on our couch?
I do have to shout out Eighth Notch for the meme.
Oh yes,
of New Mexico United being the family member that asked to crash on your couch for a couple days or whatever.
It's just one night, I swear.
Yeah, feet kicked up, just making themselves at home. I am interested in that arrangement. The one thing you said, Mikka, about home field advantage, I do wonder if there would be some kind of agreement worked out where whatever initiatives New Mexico was trying to do in their kind of like fanless games, if they would allow them to, like, if they're trying to do the cardboard cutout thing, or if they're trying to do any sort of like displays or something like that. That's the one like sticky part for me is like, is Locomotive going to allow them to do that in the swap if they're playing a home game? If it's a scheduled New Mexico United home game, are they going to allow them to do that? Because I think that will be viscerally upsetting to the hardcore fans. I think seeing New Mexico United stuff hung up in the swap would be one thing where it's like jarring and potentially upsetting for a lot of people.
Yeah, unless you're playing at a genuinely neutral ground, like how we've all been watching the FA Cup semifinals at Wembley, I think that would be pushing it a little bit much. I just can't see some of the diehard fans being okay with that. And what benefit would that give us? You know what I mean? I mean, that'd be kind of strange.
Yeah. Well, I know the recently demolished Cohen Stadium is available. So if New Mexico wants to take that, they are more than welcome. No, but
it probably looks more like New Mexico there than anywhere else.
Oh man, yeah. I don't know.
Either. There's so many other options in El Paso where they can play outside of the swap.
True. They could play out at what is that? Socorro Independent.
Yeah, they could play at the SAC.
At the SAC. I mean, that's a nice stadium too. I don't think it's I don't think it's grass, which would be potentially an issue. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's turf.
But
I mean, if high schoolers can play on it, I mean, why can't New Mexico United?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, they'll be like Phoenix and they'll start complaining. Did you guys see this? Asante complaining about the surface out at Orange County and saying that's why they drew.
Did he really?
That's why they drew. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah. Excuses.
Oh my
Soft. But yeah. So anyways, that is, it's interesting. I was not expecting to see the Blue Jays thrown around as potential, like from Major League Baseball thrown around as potential tenants as well, because Canada won't let them play in Toronto. You know, El Paso doesn't like hit my mind immediately when someone says Toronto, Canada. Like, what's the next best thing? If you're used to Toronto,
could you move any further? Like,
I don't know. I mean, won't be many rainouts, I guess, except in this particular game. It might have been a rain delay for if the Chihuahuas were playing. Locomotive enduring a little bit of weather in this one, but we'll move briefly into our listener questions, and the first listener question is about none other than
Leandro Carrijo.
Our new Brazilian striker, Leandro Carrijo, as you heard it pronounced. That is a genuine Brazilian pronunciation. Mikka, I mean, you scored us the legit deets on Leandro since he joined. Yeah.
Shout out to my really good friend Andre Monteiro. He's also Brazilian and he's from Minas Gerais, which is the same state that Leandro is from. So I asked him, hey, real quick, can you just pronounce the name for us? Because I know, this is a Spanish-speaking community and he's coming from Juarez, so they call him Carijo, which is fine. And I'm sure we'll continue to call him that, but it is Carrijo. Because he is Brazilian and they do speak Portuguese there. So yeah, thank you, Andre, for recording that for us.
Yeah, it's going in the soundboard, so you guys will hear that if he's making waves. The first question was from Kevin Quintana, and he was just asking if we could expect to see Leandro make an appearance this early, or are we going to have to wait longer before he makes an appearance? What do you guys think? I mean, I know obviously we don't have the inside track on training right now. It does seem from social media that he's back in training and is happy to be. Him and Borelli are both, fully training with the team now and really like trying to get back to fitness. Do you still think it's too soon for these guys? That's open for the whole group.
I think so. I probably think we won't see him until Phoenix. Because who knows if they were training beforehand, but just kind of the way it's being worded in the Twitter sphere and what the club's putting out seems like they just aren't ready. But hey, I mean, if they're ready to come on as a sub, why not? But I don't think we're going to see him until Phoenix.
Yeah, I think it might even be longer than that. I think even, next Saturday is still a little bit generous, but we'll see. I don't have high hopes for them showing up anytime soon.
Yeah, I think fitness wise, we're seeing struggles from guys who have been training with the team, and they obviously had an enforced break for quite a while, but if these guys weren't training at all, like with Bravos and they're coming over and these guys all had a full preseason to kind of prep, I just think they have a lot of catching up to do. And they're obviously, they're older players, and that's not, not a knock or whatever, but they, reaching those fitness levels, I think is just going to take a longer time. So it is what it is, but yeah, I think we're going to have to wait a while, before things move on. Speaking of people who aren't fans of Locomotive who listen to the podcast, we did have a question from Seek and Strike, our neighbors to the north, just asking, how do you rate
tenants?
This? What's that?
Our tenants.
Yeah. Our new roommates, Seek and Strike. Just asking, how do you rate this year's roster versus last year's with the latest pickups? It's an interesting question because I think there's almost two versions of last year's roster to rate. Like the pre-Kiesewetter and the post. Like, there's kind of two different teams in there. But we'll go, end of last year to the beginning of this year. How do you guys feel this squad stacks up against last year's?
You know what? I think that this squad was built with more of team cohesion and the system in mind. I feel like last season we had more individual talent. Not that it didn't fit the system, but I feel like Kiesewetter and Velasquez
Boo.
I just feel like that they could take games by the scruff of the neck and kind of just change the game on their own. Whereas I feel like some of the signings that we've made this season are very much with the team in mind and playing as a team. Not that those two players weren't team players, but they just seem to, pull us through certain games. And I feel like the way that we built the squad this season doesn't really have too many stars, if you will. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure we'll see at the end of the season what that's like, but that's just kind of my knee jerk response to that.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Micah. Like, it seems like this year's squad is more built around building up through a squad as compared to last year, where one or two players could have changed the entire feel on the field and could have changed the game by themselves. So it's not saying that one is better than the other, but it definitely feels like a different squad compared to last year.
I think for me, it's a little bit more difficult because, like you said, for one, like Phil said, I think we had more than two different teams last year. There was pre and post Kiesewetter, but then there was post Kiesewetter getting hurt, and then there was, like Kiesewetter hurt, but Velasquez being there, and Bryan out, but Velasquez and Kiesewetter being there. So, so there are a ton of different versions of this team, and so maybe this makes my answer a little bit biased because I don't think we saw what our team really could be last year, but right now we've seen I think the times that we were 100% last year compared to now, I think we're a better team this year. So 3 weeks into the season this year, I think we're a much better team than we were 3 weeks into the season last year. That's why I think that right now is a better team, because it's just been weird this year. It's hard to compare. It's almost apples and oranges, because even this year we're doing pretty well, but I still don't think we've seen who these players are, when they're fit. But, just if we were just putting the calendar right next to each other, I think that we're playing better now than we were last year.
The last question comes from Lou at Locomotive, or at Lutep Minor. Sorry, Locomotive Minor. Do you see us shuffling up our back line after the last match? And that's it. Do you think Lowry reacts to the performance, or do you think he kind of sticks with the back four that we'd expect?
Well, Chiro Toko went off injured, so that change might be enforced. Mishak looks like he's still trying to get fit, so if he starts, maybe he gets subbed off. or comes in late like he did against RGV. So yeah, I think yes, at least one of those players will change most likely. Fox can play there, but Fox is such a threat going forward that I think you would almost be ashamed to put him there, even though he can do that job. So yeah, I guess yes would be my answer. I would think we would see at least one change.
Yeah, I think it looks different, but I think I think it might look different every game. I think we're going to use a lot of rotation, just like we'd said before the restart started, and utilize those 5 subs and manage minutes and try and make sure that we stay healthy. So I think that'll look different, but I don't think that it is necessarily a product of Chiro and Mishak having a bad game.
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah.
Very, very fair. Yeah, I think we see Drew Becky in this one at least for a half, but likely he'll be back there. He could start depending on Chiro's fitness. We're not really sure what that looks like. If it was just cramps against New Mexico, then he could easily come back and put in a shift and be fine. But if it was more than that, then obviously we could have that enforced change, as Mikka said. But thank you guys for the questions. I know I sent the tweet out pretty late before. So thank you for sending that in. And so now it's time to talk about United round 2. We obviously went a little more in depth, so this will be a little bit more specific. But I wanted to start with kind of Mark's view of this matchup in the post match of the first game, and we'll see what Mark has to say about it.
Confidence, or rebuild that confidence going into next Friday.
I don't think it's I think the guys are angry right now, which is good. The guys, where my office is, it's kind of in between the 2 locker rooms, and there's a bit of music in their locker room. There's a lot of talking and singing, happy voice, and our locker room's dead quiet. There's disappointment there. We know we left something on the field today, and we want to kind of get back out and play again tomorrow because we had chances to win the game that we regret not taking, and mistakes that we made that we don't want to make again. And I'll learn from it. I'll be better for it. The team will be better for it, and they're going to be itching to get back on the field next Wednesday to kind of finish this off, I guess. I don't think this game's finalised. This game doesn't feel like it ended. It was a great game, probably a fair result. Neither team deserved to lose the game, I don't think. New Mexico feel like they didn't deserve it. They did enough for the point. We were definitely the team in the ascendancy, but I think this game, there wasn't closure tonight. So I think that's going to set it up nicely for next week and provide the guys with the extra motivation to go and kind of finish the job.
Those were Mark's thoughts in the immediate post game. Do you guys agree that going into this matchup, it almost feels like a continuation of the first due to the fact that we're, playing so close back to back? And how much do you think that's going to affect, our players in terms of their approach to this one?
Yeah, it does.
Go ahead,
Christian.
We'll go Austin, then Christian.
Yeah, it is going to definitely kind of feel like that, especially with it just being back to back. But I remember watching that when they had that press conference live on Facebook, and it made me kind of happy about the mentality of the players are knowing that it was a game they should have won, that they should have taken. And you can kind of see the flip side of it. New Mexico knows they stole a point there. They got away with it. So hopefully the squad comes out in this game on Friday and is able to, kind of flip the switch and take the points that they need to take here, because it's, again, not a game that we should have tied at all.
Yeah, it's a unique opportunity that we're getting to play back to back. I don't think that happens normally with the way the schedule is set up under normal circumstances. So I think that it really is more of a part 1 and part 2 than we would feel like it was. like say the way the schedule was set up last year. So I think that's good. I think that will allow them to play with with a fire under them, especially like for someone like we mentioned with Omar, who kind of maybe needs a little bit of that to function a little better. So I think it'll be good for him. I think he's going to have a good game if he gets the chance to play. But yeah, I think that it's going to be exciting, and hopefully we come out with a better result.
How do you guys feel? And Mikka, we can start with you on this, but how do you feel that Mark will try to counter that press that New Mexico came out with? I mean, I think we can safely assume they're going to try to do the same thing. It worked. So how do you think Mark tries to get around that, or what will they have been talking about in training to try to rectify the obvious problems that we face against that press?
So I don't think that Mark is, overnight going to start telling our center backs to just clear it. I don't think we're going to compromise on the way that we play. I think that everything just needs to be that half step quicker. We need to be switched on. We spoke about it, at the top of the show. There were some players that were just not paying attention, and that could be as a result of just not having match fitness or having played, before. But I mean, these are professionals, and this is what the coach and what the fans expect, is that they're going to be switched on. This is a really unique opportunity in that we're playing this team again, because we can kind of treat it like a second leg, I guess, of a two-legged tie. So, they're just going to have to stick with the principles. I don't think that changes. I don't think the system or the way that we play changes. Maybe the actual system will, but yeah, I mean, that's really all. I don't think there was anything inherently wrong with the way that we played. It just needed to be better. The way we play needed to be better. So yeah, I mean, they'll just need to take a look at the film and train, and hopefully we don't have, hopefully Chiro's not injured, because I would actually like to see him start again, because I think that he gives us that leadership and that presence in the back. And then, from there, and Richie as well. Those two players, I think, would be, really integral to a side for another derby. So, but yeah, I think that's really it. I didn't see anything that, that we need to radically change or anything like that.
United come out of this one a little bit banged up. We have a couple of question marks around a couple of players, but more so, we have multiple players who logged 180 minutes in those opening two games, kind of in quick succession. How big is it that primarily for Locomotive, but what kind of advantage does it present that, we now have 9 days separating these games? It's one of the biggest breaks that Locomotive will get this entire restart. It might be the longest actually here at the beginning. But 9 days between games, a lot of time to be able to prepare, a lot of time to be able to get people fit for this one. Do you think that inherently helps Locomotive having more time to prepare, or do you think that helps United more? Who do you think has the advantage in that?
I think that probably goes advantage us, because like Mikka said, United is a team of athletes. I don't feel like they probably need a whole lot of time to recover. They're probably good to go, after probably, 4 or 5 days, but team like us with some older guys, some more seasoned guys, I think that we really need those extra days to get back to 100%. So I think it's better for us. I think it also, just coming off of this kind of game where mentally we weren't there, I think a little bit of additional recovery time can help them kind of, if they are in their head at all, I think it helps to help calm them down and ease their way back into the season. Because this game was rushed, coming after the first one on Friday, or Thursday, I don't remember. But yeah, so I think it helps us because I think we need the extra days more than they do.
How does, well, I guess with the extra time between games, we'll talk about our predictions for the lineup. So I want to kind of talk about this in terms of, who played the last match, but who would you expect to see in this one that didn't start? Or do you think that Mark kind of takes a similar approach and tries to exploit the things that Locomotive did well in this game? Mikka, kind of to your point, do you think he kind of approaches the game from a place of, okay, we learned from our mistakes and we're going to kind of try to do the same thing, just better?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, I think we just have to stick to it and do better. I think, I don't know, I'd kind of like to see Mars get a rest, but he's already so important, which is like kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But I mean, he takes all of our set pieces and, he's in the hole in the 10. But yeah, I don't know really who could fill in there naturally unless we change systems. But yeah, I don't know. I think maybe he gets a rest if maybe Nick can play in that area. Gomez, I think maybe Lomis comes in for Gomez to start. And yeah, I don't know. I think those are the only changes I think that I would want to see, but I think everyone else played pretty well and can probably start again.
Christian, you nodded your head. I know you are like the resident Gomez stan primarily, but you want to see Marios come in for Josue Aron in this one?
Yeah, I think so. I want to see him and Omar play together. I want to see what that attack looks like. Maybe even change up the shape a little, and like I can't think. I don't have like the moving pieces right now. Like I can't exactly think, but maybe like a 4-2-3-1 with Lomes at the top and Omar out wide. I don't know who goes on the other side, but something like that could work. I think
maybe Saeed Robinson.
Maybe I said, I don't think we've seen a lot of him, so it's hard I don't know if he does that. But something like that I think might work. I think the back line stays the same if everyone's healthy. I think Chiro and Mishak get the start. Brian's been pretty good. Fox has obviously been killing it there. So, and maybe Dylan does get a rest, and we have Richie and Yuma playing back there, kind of like we did most of last season. That seemed to work pretty well. So that's what I'm thinking, something like that.
Austin, do you have any thoughts about anyone that you want to see in this one who didn't play, or anyone who you're really looking to kind of make the difference in this one?
I'd have to agree. I think Lomas is going to start over Gomez on the top, and I think that's probably going to become a regular rotation between the two. At least that's what it seems like. Aside of that, I mean, it's barring injuries. Why really make any changes? Maybe a change on the back line. Maybe get Mishak out of there and have him come in as a sub instead. But I don't see Mark really making any changes. Granted, yeah, it was a quick first two games, but this 9-day period without just being able to rest and get everybody back in, I think it's an advantage to be able to kind of not have to mess with the lineup too much.
Yeah, I think the Lomis for Gomez shout is a good one. I think Marios, he played 90 minutes against RGV, if I'm remembering correctly. And I think it was kind of natural that he not be in the starting lineup 3 days later against a team that runs quite as much as New Mexico do. But yeah, Christian, I think your shout that, if we have Omar up there as the kind of almost like a pressing forward, I guess, in a lot of ways, like a guy who's just running a lot, trying to get in behind, like causing a lot of problems, and gets into a lot of areas to deliver crosses, then it's kind of natural to want a guy like Marios to be in the box to be on the end of those. But yeah, I think it'll be an interesting match to see, because I think in a lot of ways, Mikka, as you brought it, or it's kind of like a two-legged tie. Like it feels like, a knockout tournament or something like that, where you're playing the same opponent, within a couple weeks or in this case, just over a week, from each other.
Just pretend that there's no away goes rule.
Yeah. So I think it's always interesting to me in those games, if you kind of line up and say, all right, like this is what we do. We know what we do well, and you're going to have to find a way to stop us. Or if they try to do the kind of mind games and deviate a little bit, in little kind of nuanced ways from the way we play. But overall, I think Mark will look at the last game as, sort of an anomaly in terms of the amount of cheap chances we gave up and the amount of possession that we conceded to New Mexico. And I think he'll kind of set out to kind of set the record straight a little bit and kind of assert themselves on the game with a similar lineup. But definitely a fascinating one to watch. We obviously will be tuned in. But before we go, we have to get our score predictions logged in, and I don't know who wants to kick it off, but I know, well, I mean, I guess, should we set like a rule? Do you want to go in points order where the person who is leading goes first? Or I guess the opposite would be like trying, I don't want to say like, let me go first because I'm in last place, but it's up to you guys. What do you guys think in terms of picking order or predicting order?
Yeah,
I think the thing is cool.
Yeah, but I think last place should go first. I think that kind of like a NFL draft kind of thing.
Hopefully, it's an advantage that actually comes to fruition, I guess. But all right. Well, I guess I will lead things off as the lowest point getter at the moment, but I'm going to go with the same score prediction as I did last week, with a 2-1 Locomotive victory this time. I don't think we're going to keep a clean sheet, but I think it's going to be a lot better. I don't think New Mexico's goal will be as cheap as it was the opener, but I think Locomotive get the victory, and I think I will go with that man that we were speaking about, Marius Lomas, to open his Locomotive account.
All right. So that leaves me next. I'm going to stick with my same prediction from last week as well. I think it'll be a 1-1 draw. However, I'm going to say Nick gets a goal in this one.
That's a big call.
I like it. He should have scored in this last one. So.
Yeah, he should have had that header, man. There's no reason that header shouldn't have gone in, except he was trying too hard.
Yeah.
Just make sure to have a word with whoever's painting those goalposts this weekend to not put that extra coat on.
Yep. Nick too. I mean, he's my like thinning hairline bro. And I think he just needed that little extra friction up top. Little more hair. He'd have put that one in the back of the net.
Oh my gosh. So I'm next?
Yeah, that leaves you next, Mikka.
All right. I actually have the identical prediction to you, Phil. I'm going 2-1. And I think Lomis scores one. 2-1 Locomotive.
All right. And Austin.
So I'm going with a bit of a out there prediction. See Locomotive win, but because of how that game was going and the way it should have ended, I'm going with the 3-1 scoreline with Dylan Mares getting a goal. That's just stuck to me after we were watching it. It was just like, that's all I could think of was Dylan.
That'll go. If he scores again, that's going on the soundboard for sure. Because he shoots hot fire. Oh man. Well, I'm interested to see how it all turns out. I think we've seen in a lot of games last year, we had a much better time in our second matchup against a team than we did in our first in a lot of games. New Mexico, I guess, notwithstanding. Yeah. But like Vegas comes to mind. Fresno is certainly one. Reno, definitely. All teams that we played kind of poorly against and then came back with a really good performance. So hopefully we can replicate that on Friday when Locomotive take on United again. A big Group C match that we will be watching with interest. Hopefully you guys have been listening with interest, and I thank you for listening. If you're not already, we are available for subscription on all the major podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and we're available, or you can follow us on all social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And we will be back with all kinds of content. There will be an analytics article posted on the Patreon soon for anyone who follows there, and you can become a Patreon too. Just, Google Patreon, I guess, and Seriously Loco. And you'll be able to find some cool content on there. Christian wrote a really cool article about kind of the fan experience and experience of playing behind closed doors. And then we'll have analytics articles and all kinds of different stuff go up there. So, keep an eye out for all that. And until next time, stay loco.